Talamoana Exiles, it's Try, and once again, I was working out and I received a notification from the Path of Exile Twitter account, and yes, it is the patch notes on the fixes for the Necropolis expansion. So I thought I'd once again deliver the news to all of you and just do a little bit of a live react. It's supposed to be fixes to grave crafting and fixes to the area-to-area mechanic because that's been feeling a little clunky, a little bad, and GGG realized that, and they wanted to make fixes after the long Easter weekend. So let's take a look exactly at what they are doing. We recently announced some improvements to the Necropolis League that we've been working on. Many of these changes will be coming in patch 3.24.0b, which we're planning to release later today. Oh, that's phenomenal. Check out the patch notes preview below. Okay, the patch notes are, this patch contains improvements to Necropolis area-to-area or map-to-map gameplay, as well as improvements to grave crafting detailed in our recent news post. We saw a lot of that. Itemized grave crafts, the removal of tiers, stuff like that. You know, you can now control F on crafts. They are sorted by the craft type and not the item level. Lots of good stuff. We've also made some improvements to tier 17 maps and fixed an issue that caused characters to feel glidey. Okay, well, I've encountered one of these, not the tier 17 map issues. I've felt glidey. I'm playing melee, Volcanic, Fissure of snaking, and I've felt this a ton, and I know that other people playing melee specifically have as well. I have not played any tier 17 maps yet, but I do know the problems related to them, mostly related to not being able to re-roll said maps, and they seem to be harder than a lot of Ubers because they brick a lot of builds. So we'll see if they've changed that. That'd be crazy if they did change that, because grinding your game's stance was that we cannot re-roll these. You are going to find these maps, you can trade them, you can just not do them. Whatever, you're going to be stuck with it. If they've changed that, that's going to be absolutely wild. So we'll scroll through these Necropolis improvements and changes, see if there's anything new. Okay, we can itemize corpses as they drop. They don't cost 1 chaos to do this anymore. That's awesome. We can also select base types. That's phenomenal, but we can't choose things like Stygian Vices or Atlas base types. We'll still need special recipes for that. That makes sense. Each of the downsides from area to area will now display the increase to the amount of collectible corpses and all flame embers they cost. We knew that, awesome. And they added 12 new all flame embers. Ooh, they must have had these in their back pocket. It reminds me a little bit of Sanctum, when they added all the unique Sanctum relics to the game that allowed for the challenge modes and stuff like that midway through the league. All flame ember of anarchy. Okay, so rogue exiles, false god, manifested wealth, syndicate researchers, syndicate assassins, Ember of Syndicate Escorts, so this looks like a lot of XP stuff. Maybe this is a currency drop, the Manifested Wealth, Synthetic Fury, so Synthesis, Trial Cores. Trial Cores, ooh, that's interesting. That almost sounds like Crucible-y. Okay, Trial Guards, Ember of the Val, Ember of Breach Lords. Okay, so some new embers, very cool. Increase the amount of collectible corpses. Okay, so they're increasing the number of corpses and embers dropping with difficult mods. That's great. All flame embers dropping a lot more. Okay, they're condensing the modifier ratings into a single craft. Tiers are removed. It's 500% increased chance for all these various modifiers now, not 200 to 500. That's awesome. They've buffed a ton of grave crafts here. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, just take a look at these numbers, guys. They're all significantly buffed. That's awesome. Okay, so devoted modifiers that provide a chance to convert an item, a type of item, to a specific item type have had their values increased. Okay, so no specifics here. Interesting. Okay, a lot of them are big buffs. Ooh, okay. Great. Okay, so a lot of the huge multipliers to monster damage have been lowered a little bit. This is great. Same with the stunning things. Now it's not 100%. Okay, great. That's good. Oh, this one has been annoying to me. Haunted modifiers that remove flash charges from killer's flasks when slain instead now cause monsters to not grant flash charges when slain. The tier 4 and 5 modifiers have been removed. That's phenomenal. I've bricked some of my flasks at certain points because of this. That's hilarious. Haunted modifiers that provided more damage for each alive monster in pack have been removed. They must have seen Crypt Rage quit. Interesting. So a lot of this stuff has just been completely removed and everything has been buffed. Increase the amount of breach splinters, legion splinters, omens and tattoos, tainted currency, reduce the difficulty of haunted modifiers throughout the campaign, and ruthless. Yes, they definitely saw that Cryptarian rage quit. The Nameless Seer is now less likely to have high-value uniques to offer in map areas under level 81, so probably above level 81. That is unchanged. That's great. Okay, I'm seeing if there's anything else here that looks interesting. It doesn't look like it. Okay. Oh, interesting. Maps will no longer be opened when closing the Lantern of Aramor user interface. They will only be opened upon pressing enter, allowing you to go do something else or to use all flame embers that might have been in your stash instead of opening the map immediately. I've done this a few times actually. That's great. Okay, and the minimap icon for the nameless seer is now displayed at a higher distance away, rather than only being displayed when you are nearby. I know people have had problems trying to find him, just as they did at the beginning of Affliction League until they added that UI in there. Okay, some UI improvements to the morgue. That's good. The Control F fix for the crafting interface there. That's a win. Okay, and the UI will no longer overlap with available corpses. That's great. All good stuff there. Looks like the league is going to be vastly improved. There's still one thing, not being able to opt out of it. And I saw a lot of people in the comments saying, hey, try it. Why would you want to opt out of the league? Why just not play the league? Well, in leagues historically, I mean, going back at least the last 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 or 9 leagues, I can't quite remember when we couldn't opt out of a league. Was it like Bestiary and I wasn't even playing then? Maybe Metamorph? I'm not too sure. Betrayal? We can choose whether or not to interact with it. For example, Affliction, you could choose to go into the Wildwood Thicket or just ignore it. In Crucible, you didn't have to do the Crucible Forge. You could just ignore it. In Toda, silver coins dropped in your maps. You didn't have to go into the Trial of the Ancestors tournament, any of that stuff. You could choose to ignore it, sell the items you got from it. With this, every single area you go in maps, okay, and in the campaign. So maybe it's not in Delve and Labyrinth and everything, but it's in the primary forms of Endgame and the core game, the tutorial. You can't ignore it. You have to include all of your play sessions filled with this league mechanic. You're buffing the monsters. You're not getting a ton of rewards, or you weren't. This looks like there are substantial buffs, but I'm still wondering why they're forcing people to interact with it when they've been so laid back with this for the past few years. They've not forced people to interact with something until now. I'm wondering if they're preparing people for a greater level of difficulty in the campaign and in maps, maybe with implicit modifiers on the campaign and stuff, kind of like what's in the Gauntlet. We'll have to see, because it's odd. It's very odd, everyone. Maybe this is a trial for PoE 2 and the randomized campaign and areas there. Maybe they want to have these revolving monster pack modifiers always there. I'm not sure. It's very interesting. I can't believe that they're not allowing an opt-out or opt-in, whatever. And that's why I think they should, because not everybody wants to go into this every single time. You might have a super hard map and you just don't want to buff the monsters anymore. You just want to complete that Guardian map or complete that Conqueror map, right? Sometimes you don't want to engage with the league mechanic, as we've seen for the past 3 or 4 years in PoE. Now, that was the Necropolis League stuff. There is a little bit more on the Tier 17 maps, which I said I have not been involved with at all. I'm just breaking into reds on my build. I'm not even close, but I know the complaints about them. You can't modify them. They seem harder than Uber bosses, and they're blocking Uber bosses completely, and those Uber bosses now have some of the most vital uniques. They have crystallized omniscience, they have Ashes of the Stars, Void Forge, and plenty of other items. Those new uniques are gated behind the Ubers. So you got to get past the tier 17s first, and a lot of the modifiers, which are unmodifiable, brick builds. So instead of talking, I should just read this first line. Tier 17 map improvements. Tier 17 maps can now be modified by chaos orbs. Okay, so you can't scour them and run them white, run them magic. They will be rare. They will have at least a few mods on them, and you can modify them with chaos orbs. A lot of people are probably going to be rejoicing because 1, this is a chaos orb sync, and 2, this means if you get a map that bricks your build in SSF or even in trade and you still want to run the T17, you can re-roll it. That's great. I wonder if you can do harvest crafting and all that on this as well. Increase the item quantity and item rarity bonuses provided by modifiers in tier 17 maps. I'm sure that's great. We've also added various divination cards that can be found in tier 17 maps in order to provide more a choice in which to farm. Okay, so the Void is moving away from the Shaper, Elder, and Maven to T17 maps. Okay, very interesting. Then we've got some rarer divination cards that are also moving to T17s. The Artist is an Abomination, and the Harmony of Souls, and now in Abomination, Shield Bearer, Wealth and Power, and Citadel, Dragon's Heart and the Cheater in Fortress, Sucker of the Sinless is in Sanctuary, and the Innocent is also in Sanctuary. The Samurai's Eye and Lucky Deck are both in Ziggurat, and Nightmare of the Depraved Trinity, is actually getting a nerf. The Ball Lightning was apparently too powerful. That's not a div card increase. Okay. Interesting stuff. I'm sure that's good for the T17 map farmers. You know, the Captain Lance is out there. And this is great that we can now reroll them, because when I do get there, I know that there are some mods that'll break my build, but I'll still want to attempt them. So I can just reroll endlessly with Chaos Orbs or Harvest Crafts. We'll have to see. And then this one bug fix I did want to highlight because I've been feeling it too. Fixed a bug with animation canceling where you could become locked into an animation before the contact point, which was causing characters to feel glidey or the feeling that inputs were being eaten. Was feeling this all the time with Volcanic, Fissure of Snaking Juggernaut. I'm glad that that's in. Good patch, fast patch. Remember, everybody, they released this on a holiday weekend, a public holiday weekend. So this is really super fast that GGG is getting this out. And there are a lot of good changes that they're making here, including to the T17 maps, which they did not hint at in that first post from yesterday. Good on them. I'm glad they're changing their stance, even though it really did seem like they were firm on that point where they didn't want people to be able to modify this piece of endgame content. I'm glad they're changing it. And they said at the top of the post that more is coming. So that's great. Maybe they will allow people to opt out of Necropolis. And I know that a lot of people stopped playing over the weekend, which is unfortunate because I've been having a fantastic time. I need to know, are you all having a great time as well? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you do like this type of video, you know, it's very different from my usual videos, but I feel like I'm getting the notification. I'm going to read it anyway. Why not throw out a video to those people who aren't on Reddit or Twitter and kind of want to know the news? Subscribe to the channel, like, and make sure to comment below, share it with your friends, whatever. Thank you so much for watching, Exiles. I will see you in the next one when I talk a little bit about my league starter, which, like I said, almost in reds, I know. So phenomenal. Slam and melee all the way. Anyways, that's all for this one. Talakura, Exiles.